Hello and welcome to this Measures of Dispersions video. In this video you'll be taught about what measures of dispersions are, what they measure and why they are important. Let's get started. The four measures of dispersion are the range, the interquartile range, standard deviation and variance, and we'll be looking at these individually later in this video. It's important to remember that measures of dispersion is completely different to measures of central tendency, which is the mean, median and mode. Back to measures of dispersion. We want to find out the measures of dispersion as we want to know what kind of spread our data has. If the data has a small spread, we know our mean is more reliable, whereas if our data has a large spread, such as the second dataset here, then we know our mean is less reliable. Let's start with the range. The range describes how spread out our data is by subtracting the smallest value from the highest. Using the first dataset from the previous slide, we will rearrange the values in ascending order. Now we can see that 12 is our highest value, whilst 1 is our lowest. If we subtract 1 from 12, we get 11, and this is our range. Now let's take a look at the interquartile range, which tells us where the middle 50% of our data resides. To find the interquartile range, we need to find three pieces of information: quartile 1, quartile 2, which is also known as the median, and quartile 3. As there are 10 values in this dataset, we need to find the average of the middle two. Here, the median is 6.5. Then we need to find the middle number on the lower half of the data and the middle number on the upper half of the data. So now we know that quartile 1 is 5, quartile 2 is 6.5, and quartile 3 is 10. Next, what we want to do is subtract quartile 1 from quartile 3 to give us our interquartile range. Here, that's 10 minus 5, so 5 is our interquartile range. Let's move on to standard deviation. Standard deviation tells us how spread out our data is from our mean. To calculate standard deviation, we need this formula. Don't worry, it may look complicated and scary now, but as we go along, it will start to make more sense. Using the first dataset, the first thing that we want to do is find the mean. The mean is calculated by adding all the values together and dividing by the amount of values. Here, our values equate to 70 and we have 10 values, so 70 divided by 10 is 7. This is our mean. Next, what we want to do is fill in this table below. I've pre-filled it for you, but I will talk you through each symbol to help you understand. This symbol represents values, therefore each value goes here, whereas this symbol represents the mean, so effectively what we're doing is subtracting our mean from each value to begin with. Once you have subtracted the mean from a value, square it and enter it into the bottom row of the table. Let's take the first value as an example. We subtract 7, which is our mean, from 1 to get minus 6. We then square minus 6 to get positive 36. It is important to remember that multiplying two negatives produces a positive. Next, what we want to do is add all of the bottom row's values together to produce 108 and divide this figure by the amount of values we have, which is 10. Therefore, 108 divided by 10 is 10.8. What we will then do is square root 10.8 to produce 3.29, and this is our standard deviation. Now let's take a look at the variance, which tells us the degree by which our data is spread out from the mean. No, I do not mean this kind of degree, but I mean degree in terms of histograms. To calculate variance, we simply square our standard deviation value. In our previous example, the standard deviation was 3.29. Therefore, if we square this, we get 10.82. This is our variance. Well done for getting to the end of this video. I hope you will leave understanding what measures of dispersions are and why they're important.
Created using Powtoon.